leaving consulting, I was like, oh my gosh, am I really going to go start a tortilla business?
So I'm very excited about my guest today, and she also has a very high dollar career as an Accenture consultant before she started her entrepreneurial journey. So that's going to trigger some folks who are currently gainfully employed and want to become entrepreneurs.
It's super relevant, especially today in just like pop culture. I don't know if you know Becky G. She's a Mexican-American artist.
I'm not young enough to know Becky G, probably.
Everybody who's kind of, thinking about leaving the corporate world, like I know sometimes it's hard financially, but if you're able to make it work and just take at least like a few weeks or a few months, I was fortunate to be able to do that so that I could really just like, first of all, clear my head and step away from the corporate world so that I could just really connect to what my passions and values were in life. And because I really wanted to start a purpose-driven business, something that I would just feel happy doing every day. And I know that when you start a business, there are long days and nights. Sometimes you're working till like midnight or 2 a.m., even on a weekend. So I wanted to make sure that whatever I was picking, like I was going to love it.
Welcome to Unlocking Moves, where we want to cover those key pivotal moments and decision points that really change the lives of successful entrepreneurs and leaders. But I want to hear their stories because I think we learn the most from stories. But not just your glory stories, Roci. I want to hear your gory stories because, as I like to say, the bigger the shit show, the bigger the lesson. So I'm very excited about my guest today. She is Rocío León, and she's an up-and-comer entrepreneur in Texas. And you're going to love her story from growing up between Jalisco, Mexico, and the U.S. And she also has a very high dollar career as an Accenture consultant before she started her entrepreneurial journey. So that's going to trigger some folks who are currently gainfully employed and want to become entrepreneurs. And she went on to begin making tortillas, I believe, in your kitchen.
Yep, with my mom.
With your mom. So it's going to be a great story. But Roci, before we get into any of that, you probably know I like to hit my guests up with an off-the-wall question or comment to really keep them on their toes, keep my audience on their toes. You ready for this?
Sure, let's go.
All right, great. So speaking of making tortillas in the kitchen of your abuelas, your grandmothers in Jalisco, I'm sure you have some great memories of those times. Tell me a little bit about some memories, but also maybe your favorite memory, but also how it impacts you today as a young woman and an aspiring entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite memories that always comes to mind, and my mom and I always talk about it whenever we're cooking together and making tortillas at home, is just how I love to shape the masa, the dough, into little animals. And then I would just like crush them. And I don't know why I did that. I thought that was fun because I love animals. But yeah, I would make little pigs, little cows, because we also had a lot of livestock on our ranch. So yeah, I would make all these I would treat it like Play-Doh and then just squish it and then it'd be my tortilla. So that's one of my favorite memories. Very random, I know. Yeah.
That's awesome. First of all, I think that's very cute and awesome. And second of all, it is a little bit gruesome to make these pigs. That's awesome. Hey, thanks for sharing. So as you can tell, my guest today is Rocío León Camarena. And she's got a great entrepreneurial story we're going to get into. But I want to talk about her background just a bit. She's got 11 years with Accenture and with a partner of Accenture. She also was an intern at Goldman Sachs, which are two amazing names in professional services. She has a undergrad from the Texas School of Business and the Combs School of Business. And she's got a graduate level program from Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management. So she is a professional badass. Then she founded Tozi Foods just over 2 years ago, and she's made amazing progress. She can be found in many stores and restaurants across Texas, and she's in HEB with at least 21 locations. Mm-hmm. And as of today, hot off the press, she is in GoPuff, which is a big win for Tozi Foods. Rocío León, welcome to Unlocking Moves.
Thanks, Kurt. Excited to be here today.
Man, I'm so excited to have you. Let's talk a little bit about your growing up. I know we talked about you growing up on a ranch in Jalisco, Mexico. You also, as I understand, went back and forth between there and Kentucky and Texas, working in some of your family restaurants.
Yeah.
And we talked about your abuelas, which I think means grandmother
Yes.
in Spanish. Okay, great. So tell me a little bit about that upbringing. We had that first question, but tell me a little bit more and how that began to impact your entrepreneurial journey. But I don't want to get into your journey until we talk about your Accenture experience.
Yeah, I'll keep it more on the younger years of my childhood. So, my family, my parents were born in Jalisco, Mexico. My family's actually been in that region of Mexico. We can trace it back to the late 1500s. So, the town that we're from, Arandas, is very well known in the tequila industry. But my family on the Camarena side actually is one of the founding families. There's a plaque in the town. So we're very proud of our roots and being from there. I was fortunate enough to have been born and raised here in the States. So I did grow up between both places. I was, during the school year here in the US, and in the summers, my parents would ship us off to Mexico so that we could spend our summers with our abuelitos, which means grandparents. And just looking back, it was such an amazing time, and it was very pivotal to shaping what I'm doing today. And it just feels extremely full circle because, I was making tortillas from scratch from the corn that we were growing on our ranch with my grandmothers at a very, very young age. And it truly influenced not only my passion for Mexican food and my culture, but also like good quality, healthy food, because that's how we were making it on our ranch and how I learned how to make it. And when I was back in the US, my family and both my immediate family and extended family, they started opening Mexican restaurants here in the US in the 80s because, it was really like the only thing that they could do at that time. And they were pretty successful, started in Corpus Christi and just opened them all across Texas, Chicago, California, and then in the Midwest, that was kind of like the last place. And we were actually the first family to open like the first authentic Mexican restaurants in that region. So one of my uncles started in Southern Kentucky and then worked his way up to Cincinnati and called my dad and one of my dad's brothers to come help him because he was like, oh, it's taking off here, doing great. So that's why we ended up moving from Texas to that region. And yeah, and that was kind of my life. I was just around entrepreneurs here in the US and learning a lot from my family's challenges and struggles. Like a few of those early restaurants definitely failed, didn't do well. And I got to witness all of that. And that's where I really learned that, hey, I love business and I love what I'm doing now.
So let's pause there for a second because that's I love what you just described. You've also, I believe, you were making very good for you tortillas in Mexico, and what your product that you have today with Tozi is a better for your product. Mexican food not necessarily has the reputation for being the best for you. Now, let me clarify. First of all, is it Tex-Mex or Mexican? And second of all, tell me what those restaurants look like. Were they better for you restaurants?
Yeah, so they were just Mexican food.
So not nice.
The ones in Texas do have some Tex-Mex elements just because gotta give the people what they want. And my family, they're smart business people. And they did, they added to the menu what they thought their customer and just the demographic wanted. Definitely more in the Midwest, it was more authentic Mexican food. But it was just, like your standard, I mean, it was very delicious Mexican food that you would get at a restaurant. I think there wasn't really like a movement or a demand for the healthy, better for you food that we're seeing now. But at home, we were always eating very healthy because that's, how we learned to eat. And I definitely noticed a difference between how I felt when I was like eating, home cooked food in Mexico or in my mom's kitchen versus just eating out in general. So yeah, for example, my mom like always cooked with high quality oils, no seed oils. She was very much against that. And I think that's probably what influenced my sister, who is also part of the business, to become an oncologist with a background in nutrition.
Wow. There's a lot we could talk about there as far as first the health benefits of a good quality diet. I do want to ask you this though, and this is I'm not sure how to phrase it, but I think I've heard you talk about the challenges of growing up, some in Mexico and some in the US. And the question that I came up with, whether it's fair or not, is were there times where you being in Mexico where you weren't Mexican enough, and where you were in the US where you were too Mexican or whatever? Tell me a little bit about that dynamic because I think it's
Yeah.
fair in today's environment. Today's episode is brought to you by Chinook Seedery, the best sunflower seeds ever. Available online at chinookseedery.com and Amazon, or wherever you get your seeds, including Buc-ee's, Dick's Sporting Goods, Shields, Love's Travel Stops, Circle K, and thousands of other locations around the country.
Yeah, it's super relevant, especially today and just like pop culture. I don't know if you know Becky G. She's a Mexican American artist.
I'm not young enough to know Becky G, probably.
She's amazing, but she talks a lot about this. There's a term that we use, ni de aquí, ni de allá, which means not from there and not from here. So this is definitely a challenge I think a lot of Mexican Americans or just children of immigrants in the US experience. Because, you feel like you're from both places, but each place feels like you aren't completely from that place because you have part of the other place in your culture. But as Becky G says, I feel like I am 200%. I am 100% Mexican and 100% American.
I
And
love
I'm
it.
very proud of that.
Man, thanks for sharing that, because I was going to ask you how you deal with that. How do you make the best of it or whatever? And you just said it. You're 200%. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Thank you for those inspiring words. Okay, let's shift to professionally, because as I alluded to, you've got a very decorated career. You're not, quote, just an entrepreneur who made tortillas in your kitchen and decided to start it. You had a pretty much an 11-year career at one of the best, most highly acclaimed consulting firms in the world. You were consulting with Fortune 500 type clients, traveling international. I'm sure you could have been partner or whatever you wanted to be with Accenture. Tell me maybe first of all about those days before we skip into moving into entrepreneurship.
First of all, I didn't even know what consulting was, having grown up around like a ranch and Mexican restaurants. I was very confused when I graduated college. I knew I loved business because growing up around the restaurants, I loved being in the office and learning about the accounting and the various revenue streams because we would also cash checks for people in the office, which you kind of will still see out there today that people do. So my family was very creative on how to make money for the business, the marketing side of it. So I knew I loved that. But when I graduated, I had my internship at Goldman Sachs and it was a really great learning experience, but something didn't feel right. So then I just encountered Accenture at a career fair on my way to say hi to the Goldman people because I had a full-time job offer there. And they were like, wait, like, like this is what management consulting is all about. And you get to work across different industries and you'll get to travel the world because Accenture is the most international consulting company out of all of them. You speak Spanish. We love that. So yeah, they, convinced me to interview and I got the job and it truly was an amazing experience for a budding entrepreneur because in my head, I kind of knew I wanted to do something like open a Mexican restaurant, but my heart wasn't fully into the restaurant part. And I think it's because I loved traveling and getting to experience so many different things. So I think the reason it took me so long to start Tozi was one, because I wasn't completely sold on starting a Mexican restaurant like so many in my family. And I had plenty of people in my family encouraging me to, hey, just come join the family business. But I just felt like I needed to take my time figuring it out. And also, I saw the value in working at these, amazing Fortune 500 companies because they had figured out a lot. I had seen the small business side of it. I had seen a completely different area of the business world. And working at Accenture gave me the opportunity to see it at a whole nother level. And I was fortunate that because I speak Spanish, I got to do projects in Latin America. I lived in Madrid, Spain for like 3 years, did a project in Barcelona with some of the world's biggest companies. And then finally, the catalyst for me leaving the corporate world because I was getting promoted and I was doing really well on the sales side, which is really important as you move up in the consulting space to a partner type role. The catalyst for leaving all of that was my grandfather passing away, who was the last of my grandparents.
Mhm.
And he left a huge part of the ranch to my mom, who asked me for help managing it. And that's where I had to, take a step back and reevaluate like, what am I doing with my life? And what do I want to do the next 10 years? Am I truly fulfilled and happy with what I'm doing? Or is this a good time to finally step away and figure out what do I want to do next?
Let's pause there. Thank you so much for sharing that. First of all, a lot of my audience are entrepreneurs already. There's quite a few that are wanting to dip their toe in and they need that extra push, perhaps. And I love how you had this life event impact your thinking, and it wasn't just continuing on the treadmill, and you decided to use it as an opportunity to really figure out what you wanted to do next. And I would encourage my audience, there are so many of you out there who are need to have that life event happen. Sometimes it's losing your job, sometimes it's losing a grandparent or a parent or something. And sometimes it's just, and trying to take a step back yourself and figure out, where does God want you to go? Where do you want to go? What are your passions in life? And so I think that's an excellent talking point for my audience. So you did some soul searching. You had some many conversations, I'm sure, with your mother and others around you. Tell me a little bit about that decision to take that leap. And you didn't go back into the restaurant business, which would have been easy. However, as you kind of alluded to before, there's a lot of nights, weekends, and holidays that you're working if you're in the restaurant business. I'm sure that could, because you like to travel, that
Yeah.
impact that decision. Tell me about the decision to launch Tozi.
Yeah. So, I was back on our ranch, and one of my first projects for my family was to figure out all of our agave contracts that we had with our tequila partners, because our ranch is just on it's amazing, very fertile land. And there were just a lot of things I had to figure out, because my grandpa, he was an incredible businessman and managed everything. So that was the first order of business. And just being back on the ranch, because I had to travel there not only for the funeral, but to, be on the ranch and figure things out. I just felt this just like connection. And I was grieving because my grandfather was very much a father figure. My parents got divorced very early on, and he really like stepped in. He called me every day when I was in college, every day when I was working and consulting abroad. And he always had like the best advice, even though he knew nothing about consulting, but he was just like one of my best friends in life. So I was devastated. I just felt this strong like urge to do something that he would feel really proud of. And that's when I started thinking, and like you mentioned, I was like, I definitely like, I don't want to open a restaurant. I thought about doing a food truck. So I decided that the best thing to do was to take some time off. And this is something I recommend to everybody who's kind of, thinking about leaving the corporate world. Like, I know sometimes it's hard financially, but if you're able to make it work, and just take at least like a few weeks or a few months, and I was fortunate to be able to do that so that I could really just like, first of all, clear my head, and step away from the corporate world so that I could just really connect to what my passions and values were in life. And because I really wanted to start a purpose driven business, something that I would, just feel happy doing every day. And I know that when you start a business, there are long days and nights. Sometimes you're working till like midnight or 2 a.m., even on a weekend. So I wanted to make sure that whatever I was picking, like, I was going to love it. And after a lot of reflection and trying out different things, I was like, one day I just woke up because I was so frustrated of thinking of ideas. And I was like, I just need to do tortillas. Like, corn tortillas are my favorite thing. Like, when I lived abroad, I miss them so much. Have you seen those HEB ads where people are wheeling like tortillas around in their suitcases? They have like ads in the Austin airport now. HEB does. That was me like 8 years ago, where security would be like, "What are you doing?" And I'd be like, "I need my corn tortillas. Like, you don't understand. I'm working abroad." So yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna make tortillas. I know how to make them. My mom's like an amazing chef who helped my family open all these restaurants. Let's just try that. And from there, I just started testing them out in my kitchen. I
Hey, let's pause here for a second, because I want to come back to something you said. I want you said something about your grandfather and this advice from a non-business, non-consulting, or maybe non-consulting person. And you said he was your best friend, but you also, man, I heard that there's got to be a couple of nuggets that are just out of left field that have impacted you, but they weren't what you would expect from, so tell me a couple of those key nuggets. Can you remember?
I would say most everything he said always made sense, but and I was just always so impressed, because I was like, "How do you, like, know all of this?" I mean, I definitely suffered from imposter syndrome. My One of my first projects when I was 23 was going to Chile to renegotiate $1,000,000 sourcing contracts for a huge group of universities that was only expanding because there was an American company buying them. So yeah, I was renegotiating these contracts and, like, didn't, like, fully understand like Chilean Spanish. It was different from Mexican Spanish, but like he's, somehow was always like, just go for it. You can do it. And constantly like reminded me of everything I had done thus far and just my like professional accomplishments. And that was helpful. And also reminded me of like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like, you just go to another project. Your life is not ending. Like you're not, a doctor, curing cancer or, in the ER or something, which, I think about my sister. I'm like, I'm sorry. I have you have a hard day. But yeah, it was just like he just always had good advice, and sometimes I would talk to him about the projects I was working on, and he would use a lot of ranch references, which strangely are just like very applicable to the business world. Or he would tell me about stories when he had to make a big investment in all of these like semi trucks because he was having logistics issues. So he was like, I'm just gonna start like my like transport my own product. So he invested in that. And I think that also helped with the imposter syndrome on the risk taking side because I realized I'm very risk averse. And I think this is something that a lot of women, especially in the business world, suffer from or have to deal with. So his words of encouragement definitely helped me get over that hump.
Well, I thank you for sharing that. He sounds like a badass, and I would say that anybody, let's say this: every successful person has some level of imposter syndrome at some point in their career. And what I would tell you, those of you in the audience, is if you don't think you've got it figured out, nobody has it figured out. We're all somewhat making it up. And so if you ever feel like, man, I've never done this before, there's everybody who's ever done anything has never done that before until they did it. So please maybe take those as words of encouragement. What's the worst that can happen? My favorite piece of advice
Yeah,
of all
yeah,
time. Thank you very much.
of course.
Okay, so you decided to make tortillas. You didn't just decide to make tortillas, you decided to make blue corn tortillas with amaranth. So we're gonna have a taste test, or not a taste test, but a tasting here in a second. Tell me about that decision. Where'd you come up with the name Tozi? There's obviously an Aztec component. It's not just, quote Mexican, but I guess Aztec were the original Mexicans. So tell me a little bit about that.
I'll start with the name Tozi comes from the Aztec goddess of health and wellness. She's also known as the mother of the gods in Aztec mythology. So I chose the name because I really wanted something that represented women and just all the matriarchs in my family, and not just my family, but everybody's family, because usually it is the grandmothers passing down the recipes. So I just wanted something that reflected all of that. I'm also really passionate about women empowerment. It's something that was always my plus one in the corporate world and to this day. So I feel like the name Tozi perfectly reflects that. Also, my name is Rocio, but I've always gone by Roci. That's always been my nickname growing up. So I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to introduce myself as, hey, I'm Roci from Tozi? And it's actually been very catchy. People always tell me that. So that's the name of it. And then when it comes to the recipe, so this recipe is inspired by the foods that our Aztec ancestors were eating in the region of what is now Jalisco, thousands of years ago. So corn tortillas are actually older than bread. Fun fact. So when I was, sitting down to think about how to make these tortillas, I also decided to add amaranth because that is also how our Aztec ancestors were making their corn tortillas. The reason you don't really see amaranth today, actually you don't, there's no other brand in the US putting amaranth in their corn tortillas or totopos chips, is because when the Spanish came, they burned all the amaranth fields in Mexico and the quinoa fields in Peru. They're very similar, like superfood cousin grains, and they replace them with rice. So that's why tortillas are being made with corn. And fun fact about corn and amaranth, they grow really well together. They're companion crops. So when you think of like the three sisters, amaranth was kind of like the fourth sister. So yeah, that was, I just wanted to bring back this ancient recipe. And there's a huge movement in Mexico already to bring back these indigenous superfoods and just recipes because they're extremely healthy. So I recently found out over the last few months that NASA has been researching amaranth and is sending it into space with astronauts. So it truly is just like an amazing food that's a complete plant-based protein. It's high in fiber. And then blue corn, we chose that because not only have we been growing it on our ranch for generations, it also has the same antioxidant as blueberries, and it's easier to digest than white and yellow corn.
Wow. Let's go. Well, you know what? I want to get into some of the story about farmers market, but this seems like a great opportunity to taste your amazing chip, your topos, and your tortillas. Also a great opportunity to share with the audience. We were introduced by our good friend who is the founder and CEO of Severe Foods, and he is all over the hot ones, and he's built an amazing business himself. We're gonna use his some of his products. I've got some crema matcha and some sassy Texan. We're going to use that on some of your chips, but your chips are amazing without the salsas. So this episode is officially brought to us by Severe Foods and our good friend Josue Rebus. And then what she also brought, which I love tortillas, homemade tortillas. And so I'm going to be all over that as well. So, well, you've already tasted them. So I'm just going to do this for the audience just so they can see me enjoy. I'm also I'm a chip and salsas free. So, all right, this is crema matcha, but you know what? Let's try it by itself. And chewing into a microphone has got its own interesting facts. Guys, delicious. I mean, it's blue corn. And when I first saw this, I met you at an event maybe 3 or 6 months ago. When I first saw them, I thought blue corn gimmick. Like, this is not going to taste, very good, or it's going to be some weird just anomaly. It was delicious, and I've had them at the Well here in Austin. Is a restaurant that carries them. We've also bought them at HEB, and I'll tell you, I'm a big fan. So let's try with some Severe Foods products. Crema matcha.
I love this sauce.
It goes so well together. And I told Josue, your product is not a salsa or a hot sauce. It's not a hot sauce. I guess it's in the hot sauce category. It's a condiment. And I could eat half a bottle with that, piece of.
Also seed oil free. It's clean ingredient.
That's good stuff. So this one's Sassy Texan.
Dude, Texas-made brands.
Mm-hmm. He's also a podcast alum.
Really?
We had him on a few months ago.
Oh, I need to look it up.
Good stuff. All right, that is absolutely delicious. So we can find them at HEB. Can you find them online for people that are out of the state?
We are launching on Amazon soon.
Okay. All right.
So keep an eye out.
But if they go to GoPuff, they can get it in 15 minutes. Anywhere in Texas?
In Texas. We're focusing on Texas.
Okay.
We want to win at home. That's our strategy. Want to scale sustainably. But we do definitely want to launch on Amazon because we have some of our customers that move to other states and then they email me like, please, I need your products.
I love it. I'm going to open this. I'm planning to take these home.
Yeah.
Those are good.
I brought you 2 packs. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. These are the corn tortillas. Do you want one?
Sure. Normally you have to warm them up. Well, I am so proud of I'll let you react, but.
Well, I've had them before and I've got a cheat code for how I'm a gringo, but I heat them up and I heat them up in a cast iron skillet.
Okay.
And then I put a little bit of butter and honey. It's unbelievable.
Okay. I haven't had amaranth is used in a lot of desserts, so makes sense that it would be good.
Probably better hot, but it's still good.
Yeah.
It's still good.
And when the cool thing about our tortillas is that a lot of brands will add gums in order to keep them from breaking apart, like during shipping, because corn tortillas can be very brittle until you warm them up. That's when they kind of bind. So we don't have to use any gums because of the amaranth, which is a natural binder. And it adds more protein and fiber to our tortillas than a regular corn tortilla as well. And I just love that it gives it a little bit of like a nutty flavor on the end. And yeah, that's what we hear from our customers, and several chefs use our products, including the chefs at the Well, that they love the texture. Like, it warms up almost more sometimes to a flour tortilla than a corn tortilla, thanks to the amaranth. So you kind of get the best of both worlds with these.
I was wondering about that because I do love flour tortillas, fresh, homemade. And usually the corn are not as good for me. I don't know why, but these are a great mix. They have a good flavor.
Yeah.
They heat up well and absolutely delicious.
Thank you.
Sorry. So again, let me show this. The blue corn tortillas. And then I want to do pictures for our social media as well. Chopos. All right. And chopos, is that a Spanish word for chips, or is that Aztec?
So it comes from Nahuatl, which is the Aztec language. I think that's where it originated from. But in Mexico, we don't use the word chips, we use the word totopos.
Okay.
So yeah, that's actually something I'm gonna look into more because no one's asked me that
Yeah.
before.
Well, I saw that totopos. I said topos. Totopos.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that in some of your doing some research for this. You make them in your grandmother's kitchen as well. So is it similar process? You're making a corn tortilla, but you're then cutting it into pieces before you fry it?
So that was early on. Now we make them in a facility because we're just not able to make this stuff in our kitchen anymore, especially in vegan stores. But yeah, when we started, and I mean, we have some customers that they might have some tortillas, and you can just like cut them up and put them in the air fryer, or yeah, you can bake them into a tostada, and that is how we started. Fun fact, we actually started with the tortillas at the farmer's market, and my mom was like, "How are we gonna sample them? Like, the best way to, like, try tortillas, like, warm, and, it's kind of a lot of work to, like, cook at the farmer's market." So then she was like, "Wait, we used to just fry them up into totopos on the ranch. We should just make some chips as, like, the sampling aspect of the tortillas." But then people tried the chips, and they were like, "Oh my god, these are so good." And now the chips is, you know, just as popular as the tortillas.
Wow. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to tell you that we've had at least two other guests on the pod who have been discovered at farmers markets. The first one we talked about a little bit before we got on air, which was Stephen and Allison Ellsworth, the founders of Poppy, which, spoiler alert, they just sold for $2 billion. Their soft drink company. They were discovered at the Dallas farmers market. And then we had two other folks, Carmen Diane and Kara Still, are Black entrepreneurs who support Black farmers at a farmer's market in LA. So really cool stuff. In fact, you guys may need to meet each other for what you guys are doing. But so welcome, you're the third person who's a big farmer's market graduate, if you will, on the pod.
Highly recommend it. If you're thinking about doing something in CPG, I think it's the best place to start. It requires very little investment. And this is advice I always give entrepreneurs that are just starting out in the CPG space. Like, don't spend a ton of money. Do everything, like, do things as scrappy as possible because everything's going to change. Your packaging is going to change so many times, your recipe is going to change. So just get out there and start getting feedback, and you will get some of the best direct feedback that will help you build your brand. And then you have loyal customers that support you once you're in stores.
That's fantastic. I've got several CPG companies I can think of that need to be doing more of that as we speak. Were you discovered at a farmer's market? I know you won an award with HEB's, one of their entrepreneurship programs, but were you discovered, or anybody, you big unlucky move at a farmer's market?
Yeah, so our story is a little bit different, and I'm very fortunate for this. So when I had the idea for Tozi, I applied to backpackers meeting at Expo West, to meet with a buyer at Central Market, and I didn't know what Expo West was, like, coming from consulting, like, I wasn't in the CPG space. So I got picked to pitch, and I just assumed it would be in Dallas, but luckily my fiance, who's also my co-founder, he's worked in CPG and beverage for many years. So he was like, "No, this is in California." And he was like, "When is this meeting?" And I was like, "During Expo West." He's like, "Oh my God, that's a week away. We have to like book everything." So I literally created a pitch deck, the brand, it's different from what we have today, but just created everything in a week, flew out there, made everything in my kitchen. And I had a few other iterations of these tortillas and products pitched to the buyer, and she was our first supporter. She loved the idea. She's from South Texas, also Mexican American, so she very much understood what we were trying to do, and she's been our supporter from day one, and a dear friend. And anyway, she was like, "Go for it, do it." So we came back. We were like, "Okay, let's do a proof of concept, really refine what we're doing at the farmers market." And then once we refined it, built out our brand, and got everything in place to be in retail, that's when we went back to her and we were like, "Okay, what do you think? We're ready." And we launched in Central Market the next year.
That's awesome. So you got to tell me your name, or can you shout out her name for?
Yeah, Laura, she's amazing.
Let's go, Laura. People like you that really support the young entrepreneurs is really fantastic. So okay, so we're at the point of the show where I like to ask you about your unlocking move or moves. It sounds like we may have a couple that we've talked about here as we've gone, but unlocking move again is a key pivotal moment or decision point that really changed your life or your career, your entrepreneurial career. And I want to really inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs to seize the opportunity when they have those moves in front of them. Tell me a little bit about one of yours or two of yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think applying for HEB's Quest for Texas Best program was a huge unlock for us as a brand. I applied, the applications open a few months in advance of the actual announcement date, and we were still very early on with Tozi. Like we had just launched our chips at Central Market and just starting to pop up in other small local retailers. So there was definitely a lot of imposter syndrome of like, am I ready for HEB? Are they even going to look at us? They're known for their tortillas. Like, why would they be interested in another tortilla brand? But I went ahead and did it anyways. Remembered my grandpa always being like, just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? And in my head, I was like, well, I guess the worst that can happen is they know who I am and my product, for future opportunities. So just applying and going through that process is something I also highly recommend to other CPG entrepreneurs here in Texas, because your product does have to be made in Texas. And yeah, just went through that process. We ended up getting first place out of hundreds of brands that applied. And that really allowed us to really speed up getting into HEB, which is, the largest retailer in Texas and one of the most amazing retailers in the country. And we're able to launch with our tortillas in 21 stores, literally just like 2 to 3 months after the competition. And now we're about to roll out in like 100 stores with our chips. So that has definitely been a huge unlock for Tozi.
Well, that's awesome. I want to highlight that among a couple things that you said there. First of all, anybody with any kind of product can go to a farmer's market. Not everybody does. So that in and of itself, you took the leap to go to a farmer's market and you receive people who like your product. You probably have other criticisms of people who don't like your product, and you've got to have a big enough,
Thick skin.
thick skin, exactly. And not everybody can handle that. But I want to encourage those of you out there that it doesn't take that much just to do that a little extra and go to the farmer's market. Second of all, applying for the deal with HEB, like that took, am I really ready for this? It took, again, of will. It took grit. It took a lot to do that. And you did it. You followed through. And that's what I'm saying. Most people don't follow through when they have those opportunities in front of them. And kudos to you for doing it. I want to encourage my audience to do it when they have those
Yeah.
opportunities.
Being in Texas, I'm always like, just grab that bull by the horns. We've always had bulls on our ranch too. So I love uh, that phrase. Just go for it. Like literally, what is the worst that can happen? It's actually probably going to be another positive thing, even if you don't end up going through. So yeah, I always tell people, I'm like, do scary things. Like if it frightens you or makes you nervous, you're gonna learn something from that. And then next time you're not gonna be as nervous, and then you're gonna do something even scarier.
I love it. And by the way, you said you were risk averse before. I'm going to call BS on that. It doesn't sound like you are officially risk averse.
I still am, but I have surrounded myself with just a great community. Like I have my mom and my fiance and just all these amazing people in my network so that whenever I do start to feel that, I identify it very quickly and then I express it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous about this. And someone in my network will be like, stop it, like just do it, and kind of help ground me. So it's important to have some people like that in and around you.
That's great. So I consider myself the listener's advocate, and I've got a question around what I consider if I've got Roci here with, what would I want Kurt to ask if I'm having a one-on-one conversation with Roci? And one of my questions was, tell me some of the best advice your grandfather gave you. So I've already answered that one. But here's my other one, and that is I understand that you like to mentor young women, female entrepreneurs, especially Latinas. And presumably, in fact, I know now that you were mentored yourself by other older, is it Latina women? Is that the right word for older?
Yeah, just Latinas and I mean just women in general. Yeah, also non-Latinas. Shout out to my mentors.
Well, give me some of the best advice that you've received from female entrepreneurs or women in generations above.
I think something that I'm thinking of from two specific mentors that has come up through the years. And one of them, she's been my mentor since I was 23. She was actually my first boss at Accenture. So shout out Carla Para. has been to just stay true to yourself and just be authentic to who you are. I think, a lot of us are encountering imposter syndrome. Are we good enough? Do we say this? Do we not? But what I've noticed just going through life professionally and building Tozi, that if you just speak the truth and own who you are and the things that you've experienced and not try to hide them, then you'll come off as more authentic because as human beings, we can pick up on that and people will want to support you with your dream. Leaving consulting, I was like, "Oh my gosh, am I really gonna go start a tortilla business?" Like, I went, for working with Fortune 500 companies, helping them with super complex problems, saving, millions of dollars, working capital, all this stuff. And I'm like, "I'm, like, making a tortilla, what?" But then when I think about it, I'm like, "No, this is who I am." Like, I love my culture. I'm passionate about food and healthy food. And I think that is part of the success that we've been able to have as Tozi. Like, I'm literally doing something that I love and I speak authentically about it.
I love it. Be yourself, and that's such great advice. Okay, I've got one more question for you. It's really a trick question, but that is one question that you're never asked, and either you secretly wish they would, or you wish that they wouldn't ask you. You're glad that they don't ask you.
Hmm.
We got a couple potentially teed up, but I wanted to see if you had any that come to mind.
Oh, I'm never asked about the color on our bag.
Okay,
I don't know if this is as juicy as you were hoping.
let's go. I can still ask my other question.
Yeah, for your other questions. Yeah, people never really ask me. They ask me about the name, but I love, like, I'm always like, please ask me because it's actually the color of amaranth flowers. So this color, like on the color scale, its name is like amaranthine. So, yeah, now you guys know.
Now we know. Perfect. I love it. Thank you. Well, let me go ahead and give you my other three questions that I could ask, and you can tell me if you want to answer any of them. First of all, is there anything about your culture that people misunderstand? Number two, you got an open water dive certificate, which is pretty cool. Any cool places you've been? And number three, I was gonna ask you about if there was a significant other, because I know that my male watchers are gonna ask, but you have a fiance, Charlie Edwards,
Yeah.
well, he's a really great dude, and we'll take that one off the table. So open water dive or anything about your culture that's misunderstood.
Yeah, I think the culture want piece, we talked about it, how there is a misconception that Mexican food is very unhealthy, but the way that we eat it in Mexico is actually super nutritious and, it's full of superfoods like I talked about today. So I just want to help spread more awareness around that. And encourage people to learn about these ingredients. So my sister in the oncology field, there is a lot of research happening on the power of these indigenous superfoods and how beneficial they are. And the whole conversation around food as medicine is, I think, something that could be very beneficial for more people to learn about. So I'll say that on the cultural heritage part of things. And then on the dive, so I actually haven't really gone to a lot of places. I've only dove in one place, and that was in Malaysia. So I dove in this amazing place called the Perhentian because when I was living in Madrid, one of my best girlfriends, Lorena, hi, I'll make her watch this. She'll follow me.
One more follower. Let's go.
Her.
They all add up.
She is like an amazing advanced diver, and we went to Asia for a month, and she was like, "You have to go on this diving trip with me. You have to get certified." And I was like, "Okay, fine." And it was very terrifying, but also incredibly beautiful because the Perhentian Islands are known as one of the best diving places in the whole world. But I was really sad because at the end, I had one dive left and I was so exhausted that I decided to skip it out. And that's where everybody saw a baby whale shark. So really bummed about that, but I guess I just need to keep diving.
That's right. You never say no. Just keep taking that adventure.
Yeah.
That's funny because I am a big believer that I might not ever be here again. And so I've skipped a few things like you where I've been there and I didn't do it because I was wanting to sleep in or whatever. But my philosophy in life now is just do it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be what's the worst that can happen.
Yeah.
Although in diving, open water dive, the worst that can happen is you die a horrible death. And but that's, you know what, everything you do could end up in all.
That's why I don't dive anymore. I'm like, it's a little too risky. I'd rather keep my risks on the business.
We may have to cut that part of the show out because hey, on that note, we're going to wrap this puppy up. Roci, thank you so much for joining me on Unlocking Moves. And for those of you out there, please go like and subscribe. As Roci said, every new subscriber and like counts. And we're getting there. It's we're becoming a pretty popular show. So thank you very much. And I really appreciate you being with me today on Unlocking Moves.
Having me. This was great.
If you're an entrepreneur and you think you might have outgrown a member of your team, or maybe you've got a mic, as we talked about in Who's Your Mic, check out this quiz at who'syourmic.com/quiz. That's who'syourmic.com/quiz.